Hello, and welcome everyone to HR Profile's fourth webinar of 2016. This is the fourth in a series of 6 HR Profile educational webinars. We here at HR Profile are committed to partnering with the human resources community. We provide these sessions to help round out your education and even provide you with some SHRM and HRCI credits. My name is Sonia McLaughlin, and I'm the client advocate here at HR Profile and your facilitator for today's webinar. Did you know that implementing a talent management strategy has risen to the top of many company agendas? Well, today we're going to learn all about talent management and how important it is to have a talent management strategy and program established at your companies. After today's webinar, you'll know much more about engagement, empowerment, and environment, and how getting your talent right is essential to fulfilling your business's potential. Our presenter today is Jackie Messersmith of Talent Management LLC. Some key takeaways today you'll have will be how to avoid bad hire termination costs, how to retain top performers, and how to keep top performers engaged for maximum productivity and profit. Now, before our webinar, I actually had some surveys out and we got some results in. One of them was, what do you think has the most impact on talent management? And the options were pay increases, training, flex time, sweetening the benefits, pushing harder, threatening to fire people and firing people, recognition, and engagement. So it was interesting to see that the majority of responses indicated that flex time had the most impact on talent management. Also, another survey topic was, what do you think are the top benefits of implementing a talent management program? That one was a tie between increases in innovation and increases in learning and growth. So that was interesting to see. This is what some folks think about. And after today's webinar, we'll know for sure what some of those points are. So let me tell you a little bit more about our presenter, Jackie Messersmith. Jackie co-founded Talent Management LLC in 2006. Her success as a consultant and business owner has resulted from her dedicated commitment to the vision and mission of talent management to design comprehensive talent management solutions. Jackie is professionally affiliated with the Authentic Leadership Greater Cincinnati Chapter of Human Resources Association, also at work on Purpose and the Circuit. Jackie was a past board member of International Facility Managers Association as well. Jackie's work has been featured in Total Quality, Management, Organization, and Strategy, a textbook by Dr. James Evans, University of Cincinnati. Her article entitled Bringing People, Processes, and the Workplace Together for High-Performing Work Environments has appeared in an issue of the International Facility Management Journal and the Journal of Leadership and Management in Engineering. Additionally, the Cincinnati Business Courier has published her article entitled New Wave of Thinking of Business Processes. Another article, Why Competency-Based Talent Management Matters, was published in the May-June 2015 issue of HR Insights magazine. We are so very appreciative that Jackie Messersmith is here with us today. So before I hand it over to Jackie, here's a quick little bit of housekeeping. If you have any questions during the webinar, please type them in the chat box and we'll cover them as soon as we can towards the end of the webinar. At the end of the webinar then, of course, we'll go over those questions and answers. And if your questions didn't get answered during the time allotted, we'll follow up with you. So with that, please let me hand it over to our speaker, Jackie. we go. Here you go, Jackie.
Thank you, everybody, for taking time to attend today. I hope that you'll find a few nuggets that you can implement in your daily talent management practices within your organization. As many of you know, there are many changes impacting how we manage talent these days. For example, the recent DOL rulings on overtime, the remote workers, contingent workers, and retirement workers, or retiring workers, flex time, robotics, and one of the biggest things that seems to be rising to the top is just a simple lack of skills, both soft and technical. I'm going to ask you a few questions throughout, so think about these as you formulate questions for me. So my first question for you is, how many of you have encountered younger workers who don't know how to interview properly, how to work as a team member, or what's considered proper business etiquette? I hear a lot about this from clients and from other people in this community. In addition, there are changes being made in how performance reviews have been done for the last 50 years, along with how people are being compensated. And all of this is for good reason, some of which we'll talk about shortly. Let's just dive right in and start talking about these more in depth. What is talent management exactly? Well, we know that it's not just performance reviews. It's much larger than that. Here at Talent Management, we define it as simply getting the right number of people in the right seats on the right bus, and it needs to encompass the entire employee life cycle. The whole idea of talent management is fairly new, about 10 years to be exact. Business leaders are looking at the talent landscape and realizing that it's time to take action. Because of this, the industry grew 130% from 2007 to present. It's currently over a $5 billion market and is projected to grow about 20% each year over the next 4 to 5 years. And it's still evolving from automated forms to more comprehensive solutions. By the way, as an aside, at Talent Management, we still get calls from actors and actresses looking for talent scouts.
That's funny.
Another contributor to talent management rising to the top of leaders' conversations is employee engagement. Engaged employees, as you might suspect, are your most productive employees. These are the ones that drive innovation and company growth. They are what we call your keepers. Enrolled employees simply show up and collect their paycheck. They're not engaged and typically do not make a significant contribution to the business. However, you'll want to move some of these folks to becoming engaged and becoming keepers. Disengaged employees can actually be destructive, from something as simple as gossip to stolen company information, turning up for sale on the dark web. Analysts are saying that this insider threat is creating a security nightmare for companies with sensitive and proprietary information. According to Gallup, the cost to businesses of enrolled and disengaged employees or 79% of the workforce, represents $550 billion in lost productivity, lost opportunity, loss of human capital potential, and loss of intellectual property. There's also a realization that employees matter. Imagine that. Gone are the days of viewing employees as simply a cost of doing business to businesses migrating towards looking at employees as assets. In addition to lowering the cost of disengagement, some of the soft benefits include employee and client goodwill, reputation in the marketplace, growth, and profitability. Imagine losing a top performer in your business. What would the impact of that be? One story that was shared with me from a contractor that had an exceptional project manager running a remote location for them. Business was booming in that location, and customers were exceedingly happy. Suddenly, without warning, he turned in his resignation. When asked why and told how valuable he was, he simply said, "I haven't had a performance review in the 3 years I've been here. No one has told me I'm doing a good job. Therefore, it's time to move on. This is not the culture I'm looking for." In other words, he was being taken for granted. That could have turned out very differently with a simple acknowledgement of a job well done. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, the old performance review model is being tossed by many folks these days. Its history began in the 1950s with the federal government, so it's definitely time for change. Here's some data that supports this whole decision. In addition, 4 out of 5 U.S. workers are dissatisfied with performance reviews. 46% of respondents said that annual performance reviews are not an accurate appraisal of an employee's work. Psychologists have found that at least 30% of performance reviews ended up in decreased employee performance. That's not an outcome you're looking for. Put another way, how many of you personally look forward to receiving or giving performance feedback? Are you or your employees surprised at what you learn during a review? These 2 questions alone are indicators of why things must change. Added to all of this is the pressure that business owners face, both private and publicly owned. Things like bench strength, coaching abilities, goal alignment. HR professionals also recognize that things need to change as well, with 90% recognizing that performance management systems do not yield accurate, actionable information. A lot of things have been tried over the years. We've tried sweetening benefits, training, flex time, pushing harder, firing people, and none of this has really been successful. So the question is there a fix to all of this? Well, there is. Let's take a look at the top 10 things that HR professionals are beginning to tackle as part of a comprehensive solution. What does that look like? First, what do we mean by comprehensive? We mean the entire employee life cycle. You can start anywhere you like on this chart, but we at Talent Management believe that you can get the quickest returns, lay the best foundation, and dramatically impact engagement by starting with performance management. Performance management includes everything on this chart with the exception of selection and onboarding. Now let's talk about these trends. Facebook, Glassdoor, LinkedIn, Twitter, you name it, social media in general can negatively impact a company's reputation and brand. As HR professionals, we need to keep a finger on our employer brand and understand what our reputation is in the marketplace. On the other hand, some of these same social media sites can be used to market open positions using your company's reputation and brand as part of your recruiting, selection, and hiring processes. Next, predictive analytics. There's a better way than using personality assessments such as DISC or Myers-Briggs to assess people for hiring and promotion purposes. These instruments, while valuable for some applications, do not help you choose or promote the best candidates. Using instruments that use predictive analytics to determine whether or not a candidate is suited for a specific position or not helps you make better hiring and promotion decisions. These instruments use research databases and retest methods to ensure validity of job profiles and competencies, rather than creating a job profile by committee. Along with predictive analytics, personally, I cannot stress enough the importance of using a solid, validated competency model. Why? It might be nice to know, for example, that a salesperson is an extrovert and steady, but it's essential to know that they can prospect and close business. Competencies form the foundation of any talent management strategy. Think about Jim Collins' book, Good to Great, in which he identified 5 competencies that define a great company. You can define a comprehensive talent management strategy using competencies. When we reference competencies, what do we mean? Some competency examples are team orientation, ability to learn the business, building business, professional judgment. And make sure the model is granular enough to be relevant. For example, communications. Well, what kind of communications? Verbal, written, negotiations, closing business, follow-up. There are many types of communications. So as you head down this path, make sure that these types of competencies are well defined. In addition to connecting all talent management practices using competencies, you can enable and support your business strategy by connecting your business's critical success factors to core competencies and key performance indicators. Here's what I mean. So take, for example, continuous improvement as a critical success factor for your business. Then problem solving might become a core competency, and process improvement might become a key performance indicator. Or maybe you have a set of core values that you wish to reinforce through learning programs. Think about connecting those core values to competencies that can then be connected to real, measurable training results and business results. By doing this, you will have an integrated approach which will help everyone in the business to get on the same page and working towards the same goals. Your talent management strategy should be process-driven, not a one-off annual event. It should be it's a process, it's not an event. I can't, again, cannot emphasize this enough. You want to make sure that you're moving from a subjective rating system and non-predictive or broad categories like punctuality or creativity to an objective, predictive, process-driven solution. You need to look for online solutions with those processes and workflow already built into them. The process that we use at Talent Management is what we call the talent optimization process, which is a continual process of assess, plan, develop, and manage and is applicable across the entire employee life cycle. Are any of you old enough to remember management by walking around? It's an effective way of staying in touch with employees. Unfortunately, we've lost that to voicemail, email, text messages, instant messaging, private messaging. While all of these are very useful and critical tools in today's business, we've lost touch with our most important asset, people. Try some of these tips. Take the time to notice someone, smile, high five. Pass along positive feedback. Pass along constructive feedback. Take time to give feedback. Coach someone up. Coach someone out. Maybe they're not a good fit. Help people recognize what their unique talents and gifts are. Say thanks and mean it. Here at Talent Management, we call this human tithing, or spending about 10% of your time weekly having conversations with employees about work, listening to ideas on how to improve things at work, listening to personal problems that may affect how an employee may be performing. Using competencies also will help your employees ask for and get the help they need to improve their performance. And it helps you identify and address the gaps in learning company-wide with a competency-based learning system tied to the development plans. With feedback received continuously and a written plan in place, employees can make course corrections throughout the year to improve their work rather than being surprised when an annual review is performed. Continuous learning. Whether it's a special project, mentoring, job shadowing, or in-house specialized training, continuous learning is a key component of any talent management strategy. It's been found that 90% of learning happens through these methods, with online learning rounding out the other 10%. So be sure to take a blended approach to any of your learning programs. And make use of the resources that you already have. Another trend that I have seen is companies actually asking retiring managers and employees to stick around so they can mentor younger stars and show them the ropes. This blend of sage advice and a younger person's perspective can generate enormous results. Reward those results. In addition to compensation, why not reward employees using other methods? Did a project come in on time and on budget? Did your customer satisfaction scores exceed expectations? How about a gift card or a trip or some other method of recognizing a job well done? The whole fabric of compensation is changing, with many companies disconnecting the compensation conversation from the performance conversation and rewarding good work when it happens, not when it's time for a review. Keep in mind that much compensation is a result of budgets and really has nothing to do with performance. Once again, GE is one of the front runners in this trend, so stay tuned. We'll see how that works out for them. Finally, the evolution from paper-based review forms to standalone, siloed on-site systems to an integrated, comprehensive in the cloud solution is where we are. Who knows what the future might hold? You want to make sure that you always have an eye on integrating and aligning all of your talent management practices, which are enabled and held together with an in-the-cloud, competency-based talent management solution. In this illustration, you can see that you want to start with your talent strategy and your business strategy and making sure that those things are aligned, which is part of what we've been talking about here today. Underpinning all of that is your capability and competency management model that you use. Beyond that are the various processes that you need to have in place: selection and hiring, compensation and reward systems, leadership development, succession planning, career management, and performance management. What the glue that holds that all together and makes it successful are the learning and development systems that you have in place. You might be thinking, we can't afford to do this. We don't have time. And with the recent DOL ruling, I can understand why you might think that. But besides the value of aligning your talent strategy with your business strategy, there has been data collected which has documented the benefit to your bottom line: increased employee performance, reduction in administrative costs, decreased cost of hire because you're making better, smarter hires, increase in the company value, lower turnover rates. More often than not, the reduced administrative costs alone will pay for any sort of initiative like this. So you may want to ask yourself, instead of saying, why we can't afford to do this or we don't have time, maybe you should be saying, we can't afford not to do this. Thank you again for attending today. We'll pause now for questions that Sonia has been gathering. And for joining us today, we'll be sending you a link to an ebook which talks about this topic in more in depth.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Jackie. So let's see, that was very informative to learn about such the comprehensive approach for companies to take with their employees and talent management. So now we've got some time for some questions. If anybody else has any additional questions to type in, feel free to do so. Now I'll go ahead and start going over them. Let's see here. So how much learning and development time should we allot for our employees to have learning and development activities?
I think that is a question that you have to come to grips with within your company, and there are some questions that you should ask yourself, like, are we going to allow time for people to do this as part of their workday? Is this something that you expect them to do on their own time or during lunchtime, for example? We typically recommend at least about 5 hours of learning per year, but maybe that's a minimum number. Again, I would say that that's a personal decision that each company needs to make.
Excellent, thank you. So how much time in any given workday should be spent by a human resources department and managers and supervisors on the talent management process?
Again, I'm going to go back to that human tithing idea that we spoke about a little bit earlier. Try to allot around 10% of your time a week to this. And again, that can be spent walking around, talking with people, actually looking at results, making plans for new programs, ensuring people are enrolled in those programs, looking at the results of those types of programs, and then checking back with people to see if they are getting benefit out of it or not.
Okay, that sounds good. Here's another one. How much does it cost to implement this approach?
It depends. Depends on what type of solution you're going to go after. One thing I would like to really emphasize to the audience is you want to make sure that you're ready to do this. So what do I mean about that? What do I mean by that? I mean that you want to make sure that your business and talent strategies are aligned with each other, that you have the right culture in place. So have you talked about learning and the investment in learning that your business is going to have to make? Are your managers prepared to coach and have feedback conversations with employees? We have a whole list of questions that if you're interested in, I can get to you. But you need, first and foremost, you need to be ready, make sure that you're ready. Next, after you pass that milestone, there are many choices out there for you to implement. It depends on the size of your organization. It depends on exactly how much you want to bite off. I've seen systems that can cost $500,000 to $1 million to implement, depending on the size of the organization and how much you're going to implement all at once. Or it could be as low as just a few $1,000s to implement a solution. Again, depending on how many employees you have and what chunk you want to bite off to start.
Excellent. That sounds like a good food for thought and for making some plans, next steps. Let's see, here's another question. How do we get our staff on board? Change has always had resistance.
That's an excellent question. Sonia and I were talking about change before we got on here in a different context, but change is always hard. One of the best pieces of advice that I can give you is to go through this list of things to do before you get started and make sure that the top leaders and the top management within your organization have bought into this. In fact, you may want to start with them on any sort of initiative like this and get their feedback and get their buy-in and let it trickle down to the rest of the organization. It cannot be a bottom-up approach. It needs to be a top-down approach whenever you're implementing change like this.
And then here's one, is the process generally the same or there's a difference between implementing a program between a large and a small company?
I think the process is probably the same. The scope is just a little different. Obviously, with a larger company, you're probably dealing with multiple divisions and departments, whereas with a smaller company, you don't have that type of complexity. Again, you want to make sure that you have a project plan and all the processes in place and that you have buy-in before you head down this road. And that may sound hard to do, but it just takes some thought and some planning ahead of time to make sure that it's successful.
Here's another question. Would implementing a system like this help if we started with one department at a time?
I don't see a problem with that. You might choose a department that you know is more accepting of change than another department, and it will help you get the bugs worked out, so to speak, within your organization. They can be the guinea pigs, so to speak. So there's not really a problem with doing it that way. I just would, again, recommend that if you're going down this path, that you make the commitment to do it. And if you work with one department as your leader in making this change, be sure that you are listening to their feedback and implementing the changes within the process of implementation that you need to make.
Very nice. Let's see. Did you have another comment on that one?
No.
Well, we've got another question. Do we need extensive IT support to implement something like this?
No, that's the good news. Most of these systems that are out there now are in the cloud. And what that means is you don't need to do any sort of software installations for anyone. Again, most of these systems that are in the cloud can be used on multiple devices. So whether it's a PC, a laptop, a phone, a notebook, it doesn't really matter. That's the beauty of where this has all evolved over time. It wasn't that long ago, really, that these were systems that had to be, the software had to be installed on a server that you maintained as an organization. And there are the obvious problems with integration and things like that, and support and service that go along with that. But that's all changed over the past 3 or 4 years. There were some big acquisitions made, beginning maybe 3 or 4 years ago. SAP, for example, acquired SuccessFactors, and it was primarily because SuccessFactors was already in the cloud. PeopleSoft acquired Taleo, and again for the same reasons, because it was in the cloud. And there are new systems springing up every day with new innovative parts and pieces of all of this. So I guess that's the good news, is you don't need a whole lot of IT support. There might be some things that people need to do with their browsers to enable pop-ups, for example, to get to learning, but that would be just about it in my experience in this so far.
Okay.
Other questions?
Yeah, we've got another. Are you okay with another?
Oh, as many as you have.
All right. How much integration would you think makes sense if we have also implemented an assessment process for hiring new people?
Then I would think that the integration that would need to happen there would be back to that competency model that we spoke about, or that I spoke about earlier. So if you were using assessments for making hiring decisions, and hopefully it's a competency-based assessment that you're using, then you'll want to be sure that whatever those competencies are, that those are then used throughout the rest of the talent management process. And here's what I mean by that. You don't want to hire, I'm going to use a salesperson as an example. So say there's 5 or 6 competencies that were part of your decision-making process for hiring that salesperson. When it comes time to review that person's performance, you don't want to be evaluating him on a different set of competencies. You want that to be integrated. And that way, you'll be able to tailor the learning and development around those competencies so that that salesperson is getting better and better and better at what they do. And it will help you to identify where the gaps in his skills might be that may require some individual coaching from his manager, maybe some mentoring, maybe some outside training or coaching, and things like that. So integration is important, and if you've already, again, if you've already decided on what that assessment tool is for hiring purposes, then make sure those competencies are part of your performance management system.
Nice. So looks like we've got 2 questions left. Do HRIS, I believe that stands for Human Resources Information Systems, do HRIS systems already include talent management systems?
Some do, some do not. Some that do, be sure they're integrated, be sure they're in the cloud, be sure that they incorporate these trends that I've talked about today. If not, then you can look for a talent management system where the data is interchangeable between the two. That's a way to make that happen more effectively for you as well. So again, I would look, some feedback that I've received is that some of these systems that are integrated with existing HRIS systems are complex, they're hard to use, they're not user-friendly, and many times people make a huge investment in those and they simply are set aside and not used at all. So you want to make sure that whatever you choose is simple to use, is not hard to, or is not complex, and then the data can be interchanged with your existing HRIS system because that will ensure user adoptability.
Nice. And our last question is actually a comment. It was our first question. Looks like when at the beginning you were asking about how many of you have encountered younger workers who aren't tuned into, business practices.
Right.
And we had a nice comment, more than I care to admit. So.
Well, I was just at an event last week with a company that actually provides training for those younger workers so they know how to conduct themselves in an interview.
Wow.
How to dress for an interview, that they understand business etiquette, that they know how to work on a team, and in addition to that, not to stray too far off this topic, but I did a project for Cincinnati State here in Cincinnati a while ago where they had done a survey of various employers here in town to identify the top 5 things that needed to be addressed with younger workers. And I don't remember them all, but it was financial acumen. So how do I keep my checkbook balanced? How do I read a balance sheet?
Wow.
It was how to be a team member, how to dress, how to show up on time. I mean, it was a whole bevy of things. It was really pretty interesting. And I hope, my hope is that colleges and or higher education in general begins to address this.
Excellent. Well, and I think there would need to be a balance between having young people adapt to current standards and having companies adapt somewhat to the new trends, too, of the younger workforce.
Right, right, that's true. Millennials, that whole workforce requires a whole different skill set for HR managers, some of which I know that you all have probably encountered. They are looking for challenges. They are looking for work-life balance. They are looking for flexibility. So what their expectations are from the workplace is much different than previous generations. And in my view, there's some good things and some bad things that go along with that. But in my view, in general, I think that it's all good, and I think we're going to be set. We're going to be seeing a lot more changes in the workplace as a result of these millennials. And as HR professionals, we need to be prepared to address those.
Very nice. Well, thank you so much, Jackie. So that takes care of our last question. And if there's any follow-up questions, please reach out to us after the webinar. Thank you so much, Jackie, for your insights today, and everyone online with us. Thanks for joining us today. We appreciate that you're here. Jackie's contact information and ours is in the presentation, and we'll send it to you with your SHRM and HRCI credit certificates, the slides, and also some links to this presentation will be on video, and also a link to our website with our upcoming webinars where you can go ahead and register now for our next presentation in our series. It's going to be Wednesday, September 21st. The topic is a good one, drug testing. What's taking so long? Straight from the source. Our presenter will be Carl Strebel of LabCorp. He'll be our drug testing industry expert. And I can't tell you how many times, yeah, we answer the phone with exactly that question. What's taking so long for the drug test results? So a quick note before concluding today. I want to be sure to convey that on top of lining up these informative webinars and continuing education credits, it's my job to make sure there's no question in your mind that HR Profile is a very valuable resource for you as one of our nation's preeminent consumer reporting agencies, providing thorough and high-quality background checks and employment screening services for you. And in the meanwhile, please don't hesitate to call me directly if you have any additional questions about this webinar or about background screening in general. And lastly, on behalf of all of us here at HR Profile, thank you, Jackie, for the great information, and thanks to all of you for attending.